The rain fell in steady sheets, drowning the city's noise beneath a curtain of whispers. Outside a gleaming hospital, a barefoot boy in tattered clothes stood still, his face turned toward a black luxury car. Inside, a millionaire cradled his daughter, her legs limp, paralyzed since birth. The world had offered no hope, only heartbreak. But as the man stepped out, pain etched across his wealthy face. The beggar boy stepped forward, eyes filled not with pity, but certainty. "Sir," he said, voice steady despite the cold, "I can make your daughter walk again." Silence. Laughter from passers-by, scorn from security. But the millionaire didn't laugh. He turned, he stared, and then he froze. Because what that boy whispered next shook not just his heart, but his very beliefs. The air in downtown Boston buzzed with its usual weekday chaos, honking horns, clicking heels, murmurs of businessmen on their Bluetooths, in the ever-present symphony of city life. Towering skyscrapers cast long shadows over the sidewalks, where the rich strolled briskly and the poor, invisible to most, lingered by alley walls and storefronts. But in that concrete jungle, one particular day was about to become unforgettable. Maxwell Crane was no stranger to the city. He wasn't just another suit walking down Boylston Street. He was the suit. CEO of a multi-billion-dollar tech conglomerate, he was the man behind nearly every smart device people used. His name was whispered in boardrooms, printed in Forbes, and mentioned in awe at Ivy League universities. And yet, despite his fame and fortune, Maxwell carried a weight no amount of success could lift. Beside him, wheeled gently by a private nurse, was his 8-year-old daughter, Olivia. Just a year ago, Olivia was a bundle of energy, running, twirling, dancing in their glass-walled penthouse as music played in the background. But one rainy afternoon, a tragic car crash took everything. Maxwell survived with minor injuries, but Olivia, she hadn't walked since. Her spinal cord was damaged, the doctor said. Permanent, they whispered behind closed doors. He tried everything. Europe's best clinics, robotic exoskeletons, spinal implants, stem cell trials. Nothing worked. Every time they said, "We're sorry, Mr. Crane," a little more of him shattered. So now Maxwell walked the streets not as a powerful mogul, but as a father, worn, weathered, and desperate. On this particular day, he had taken Olivia to a specialist downtown, yet again chasing a sliver of hope. The prognosis was the same. No improvement, no miracles, just reality. As they exited the clinic, Maxwell paused at the corner to flag down his chauffeur-driven car. The city bustled around him, but his world was muted. Olivia, once full of spark, now sat with quiet eyes, watching pigeons chase crumbs. And that's when it happened. A voice, scratchy but confident, rose behind them. "Sir, I can make your daughter walk again." Maxwell turned, startled. Standing just a few feet away was a boy, barefoot, maybe 12 or 13. His skin was smudged with dirt, his hair matted, and his clothes torn at the seams. A satchel that looked like it had survived a war hung over his shoulder. And yet, despite his appearance, his gaze didn't waver. He looked straight into Maxwell's eyes, not with arrogance, but with purpose. The private nurse stepped forward, protective. "Back off, kid," she barked. "Leave them alone." But Maxwell raised his hand. Something in the boy's voice, in his tone, made him hesitate. "You said you can make her walk again?" he asked, his voice sharp with disbelief. The boy nodded. "I've been building something. I've read books, manuals, medical reports. At the library online, when I can sneak onto the computers, I've drawn the schematics. I know how her muscles could respond if the device compensates for her spinal gap. I've studied how nerves fire, even if they're partially damaged. It can work. I know it can." Maxwell stared, unsure whether to laugh or be alarmed. Was this child mentally ill or just bold? "You're what, an engineer now?" Maxwell said with a hint of sarcasm. "You sleep on the street, but you've invented a spinal breakthrough?" The boy didn't flinch. He opened his satchel and pulled out a piece of folded, grimy cardboard. Carefully, he peeled it open. It wasn't cardboard at all. It was a makeshift blueprint, drawn on the back of an old cereal box, using pencil, ink, and even colored markers. Maxwell leaned in, curious despite himself. What he saw made him go still. The design, the structure, the angles. It wasn't just scribbles. It was an exoskeletal brace, advanced, but with simplified mechanics to assist with balance and movement. It mirrored something his engineers had been working on, spending millions of dollars and months of testing. But here it was, in the hands of a barefoot boy with calloused hands and haunted eyes. Maxwell's heartbeat quickened. "Where did you learn this?" he asked, voice lower now. "Books, free online courses, MIT lectures on YouTube. I watch them through cafe windows sometimes. I sleep near the back entrance of the university library. The janitor lets me in when no one's looking. I don't go to school anymore, but I learn. Every day." A silence settled between them. Around them, the city moved on. People passed by, unbothered, unaware that something extraordinary was unfolding on a sidewalk. Olivia, still quiet, suddenly looked at the boy and asked softly, "What's your name?" The boy glanced at her, surprised. "Eli," he replied. "Eli Carter." Maxwell stepped closer. "And what do you want in return, Eli?" he asked, suspicious. Eli paused, then shook his head. "Nothing. I just want someone to believe me. I just want to matter." That word hit Maxwell like a punch to the chest. In that moment, something shifted. He no longer saw a beggar. He saw a mind, a brilliant, raw, untamed spark that had never been given a chance to shine. A young inventor cast aside by circumstance. Maxwell turned to his nurse and said something that shocked even himself. "Cancel my meetings today." Then to Eli, "Show me what you've built." And just like that, the journey began. Maxwell Crane had closed billion-dollar deals in penthouses and stood in the boardrooms of global giants. But that afternoon, he found himself following a barefoot boy down a narrow alley behind the Boston Public Library toward a forgotten underpass that reeked of wet concrete and oil fumes. His polished leather shoes clicked awkwardly against the damp pavement, while Olivia was wheeled quietly beside him, her eyes flicking curiously toward the shadows dancing beneath the bridge. Eli Carter moved with confidence through the filth and silence, ducking under rusted beams and weaving past piles of junk like it was his second home. Because in truth, it was. They arrived at a hidden space between two massive support columns, partially covered by a torn blue tarp. "This is it," Eli said, pulling back the tarp with one hand. Maxwell raised an eyebrow. He wasn't sure what he expected. A box of wires, a stolen wheelchair with duct tape. But what he saw left him speechless. Beneath that tarp was a world Eli had created from scraps. Literal trash turned treasure. There were stacks of old radios, dismantled bicycle parts, broken drones, and even what looked like pieces of old hospital equipment. A makeshift workbench built from a discarded door balanced atop two cinder blocks. Spools of wire, crumpled notebooks, circuit boards, and tiny hand-labeled jars filled with screws and capacitors surrounded the area. In one corner, under a wool blanket, was a sleeping bag and a single candle stub. "This is where I work," Eli said with no shame. "And sleep." Maxwell walked around slowly, overwhelmed. "You did all this alone?" Eli nodded. "I've been out here for almost 2 years. My mom used to work at a nursing home before she passed. She'd bring home old medical manuals. I read them all. Then I started collecting broken tech, fixed them, and taught myself. I can't afford school, But knowledge, that's free, if you're hungry enough to find it. Maxwell watched as Eli moved to a corner and carefully pulled out a strange-looking device. It was made of lightweight tubing, elastic bands, and rudimentary wiring. Despite its rough appearance, the structure looked eerily similar to early-stage mobility suits being developed in top-tier labs. "This is what I call stride," Eli said. "It's designed to detect minimal muscle movement and amplify it using tension mechanics. No heavy motors, just support. For people like your daughter, who still have partial function, it might help them walk again." Maxwell crouched beside the prototype. "Have you tested it?" Eli hesitated. "Only on myself. I attach weights to simulate lower body weakness. It works for small distances, but I haven't been able to calibrate it perfectly without a real subject." Olivia, who had been silent all this time, raised her hand slowly. "I want to try," she whispered. The nurse looked horrified. "Absolutely not, Mr. Crane. She's a child." Maxwell stood, torn between caution and something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. "We'll observe. Just a fitting. No walking yet." Eli nodded in agreement. Of course. With delicate fingers, Eli fitted the brace over Olivia's legs, adjusting the straps, tightening cords, and explaining each movement like a professional. Olivia's face lit up with a curiosity Maxwell hadn't seen since before the accident. She wasn't afraid. She was fascinated. "The idea is," Eli explained, "that with each small twitch of her muscles, this system redirects the energy to give lift. I designed it with spring tension in mind, using parts from broken scooters and bikes. The exoskeletal support balances posture." Maxwell watched in awe. "You're thinking like a biomechanical engineer." "I'm thinking like someone who doesn't have time to waste," Eli replied. After the brace was secured, Olivia smiled. "It doesn't hurt. It's, light." Eli nodded. "That's the point." Maxwell stepped back, hands trembling slightly. What was happening felt surreal. He had spent millions. He had hired the brightest minds. But in the end, it was a boy living under a bridge who brought back the light in his daughter's eyes. The nurse interjected, worried. "This isn't sterile. She shouldn't be out here." "I agree," Maxwell said. Then he turned to Eli. "Pack everything. You're coming with us." Eli blinked. "What?" "I have a fully equipped lab. We'll rebuild this the right way, with proper tools, testing, and medical supervision. If there's a chance, any chance this works, I won't waste it. You've already done more than anyone else ever has." "But I'm just a street kid," Eli murmured, almost as if reminding Maxwell. Maxwell leaned closer. "You're not just anything. You're the reason my daughter smiled today." Eli stood frozen for a moment, as if no one had ever spoken to him like that before. Then he nodded, slowly, his eyes glistening. "Okay." Maxwell turned to his driver. "Call the lab. Tell them I'm bringing someone brilliant, and make space in the back. We're changing lives today." As the car pulled away from that forgotten corner beneath the bridge, Olivia turned back to Eli and whispered, "You matter now." He smiled, but deep down he knew. He always had. The ride to Maxwell Crane's private biomedical research facility was silent. An awkward silence not born of tension, but awe. Eli Carter had never been inside a luxury car, let alone one with massage seats and a silent glide ride. He sat stiffly in the farthest corner, his prototype cradled in his lap like sacred cargo. Olivia sat across from him, occasionally peeking over the device with a smile that said more than words ever could. She believed in him. When the car pulled up to the sprawling glass building tucked behind security gates and manicured gardens, Eli's heart skipped. The place looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. Flawless white walls, chrome finishes, and people in clean suits moving like clockwork. It was a universe away from the grime and chaos of the underpass he called home. This is where we test our biotech, Maxwell explained. Most of the world doesn't know this wing exists. It's not just business, it's personal. I built it after Olivia's accident. But until now, no one had a solution that felt real. The lab technicians eyed Eli suspiciously. His tattered clothes and worn-out sneakers clashed violently with the sterile environment. One of the lead engineers, Dr. Julianne Voss, approached Maxwell, speaking quietly but firmly. "Sir, with all due respect, this boy can't just walk into our lab. Protocol." Maxwell cut her off. "Julianne, he designed this." He pointed at the prototype. "And my daughter trusts him. That's more validation than any degree." She hesitated, then looked at Eli. "We'll start with preliminary diagnostics. But I'll be honest, I've never worked beside someone without credentials." Eli stood tall. "Then maybe today's the day you start." That statement earned a smirk from Maxwell and a long stare from Julianne. But she said nothing more and led them into the biomechanics chamber. Hours passed. Olivia sat patiently as sensors were applied to her legs. The prototype was placed on a sterile table, scanned from every angle, its structural integrity tested, and its mechanism reverse-engineered. Julianne's team couldn't hide their surprise. Despite its rough look, the design principles were shockingly advanced. "His elastic tension ratio is almost perfect," one engineer whispered. "How did he get this right without data modeling?" "Intuition," Maxwell answered, "and desperation." They fitted a refined version of Eli's suit onto Olivia. It wasn't perfect yet. It needed material upgrades, stability sensors, and medical-grade adjustments. But Eli supervised every change. He translated ideas that were once just feelings into words and blueprints the team could follow. Slowly, the boy who lived under a bridge was becoming the conductor of a high-tech orchestra. Still, doubt lingered in the room like smoke. "She shouldn't try walking yet," Julian warned. "There's risk." But Olivia turned toward her father. "I want to try." Maxwell nodded solemnly. "Then we try." The room fell silent. Technicians gathered around. Eli stood beside Olivia, checking every strap one last time. "Remember," he said gently, "you don't have to walk, just think it. Let your muscles remember what they once did." Olivia nodded. Then came the moment. She gripped the sides of the walker. Slowly, with trembling arms, she shifted forward. The brace adjusted instantly, responding to the twitch of her thigh, the movement of her knee. One step, then another. A soft gasp echoed through the room. Tears welled in Maxwell's eyes. She wasn't running. She wasn't dancing. But she was walking for the first time in 4 years. "Look, Daddy," Olivia whispered. "I'm doing it." Maxwell dropped to his knees. "You're flying, baby." Julianne covered her mouth. The other engineers applauded quietly, stunned not just by the girl, but by the boy who made it possible. After the trial, as Olivia rested, Julianne approached Eli. "I misjudged you," she said. "You're not just a kid with drunken dreams. You're a prodigy." Eli didn't smile. "I'm someone who didn't give up, that's all." Maxwell stepped forward. "That's not all. I'm starting a new division, one focused on real-world problem solvers. No red tape, no politics, just results. And I want you to lead it, with proper mentorship, funding, and a home. What do you say?" Eli froze. All he had known for years was survival. Trash for breakfast, fear at night. Trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. But now a door was opening. "I say yes," he whispered. The lab erupted in applause. Not for Maxwell, not even for Olivia, but for the barefoot genius who walked in from the cold and made the impossible possible. Weeks passed, and the world began to take notice. The video footage of Olivia's first steps, captured discreetly by a lab technician, and later shared with Maxwell's permission, went viral in under 24 hours. Not because of Olivia alone, but because of the boy beside her. The boy with untamed hair, mismatched clothes, and eyes filled with something the world hadn't seen in a long time. Undiluted hope. Meet Elijah Carter, the 17-year-old homeless inventor who changed the course of modern medical engineering. Headlines raged across platforms. TV anchors scrambled for interviews. Blogs sang praises. And venture capitalists, they circled like sharks, offering checks, fame, patents, and power. But Eli didn't chase any of it. Instead, he stayed by Olivia's side as she went through her first physical therapy sessions using his design. He worked beside Julianne, learning how to refine the biomechanics with better materials. And every evening, he sat under the stars, not on a cold sidewalk anymore, but on the balcony of his new room in Maxwell's estate, remembering where he came from. Maxwell noticed. One night after dinner, he approached Eli with something in his hand, a business card. Elijah Carter, lead engineer, the Olivia Project, it read. Eli looked at it like it might vanish. This isn't charity, Maxwell said gently. This is your mission now. The world is watching you. And more importantly, they're believing in you. Eli took the card, still silent. But you need to decide, Maxwell continued. Are you ready to lead? To be more than just a story? Eli looked out toward the skyline. What if I mess it up? Maxwell chuckled. Kid, messing up is how most of us learn. What matters is whether you stand back up. And you've already stood taller than men twice your age. Eli smiled at that. The next day he returned to the lab, not as a guest or student, but as a leader. He gathered the team and laid out a plan. Improve the prototype, reduce its cost, and build scalable models for kids like Olivia all over the world. Julianne stood behind him, proud. The engineers, once skeptical, now treated him like one of their own. They called the movement Project Rise. 3 months later, at a global tech expo in Berlin, Olivia walked onto the stage unaided, wearing the latest version of the suit. Eli followed her, wearing a pressed suit of his own and holding the controller tablet he'd programmed from scratch. As they reached the podium, Olivia took the mic. I spent 4 years wondering if I'd ever walk again. Then a boy from the streets gave me wings. His name is Elijah Carter, and today we share those wings with the world. The applause was thunderous, and in that moment, Eli wasn't a beggar. He wasn't a burden. He wasn't an outsider. He was the future. After the event, investors approached in droves. Eli listened politely but didn't accept any offers. That night, back in his hotel room, he asked Olivia something he'd been thinking about for weeks. Do you think people would still listen if I wasn't the poor, sad kid who made a miracle? She looked at him. You're not a miracle. You're the answer to a prayer. And prayers don't care where you sleep. They care who you are. That hit him deeper than any headline ever could. 2 days later, Elijah Carter gave his first live TV interview. When asked what he planned to do with the fame and money, he smiled and said, I'm going to build a lab right under the bridge where I lived, so kids like me can stop fixing broken scraps and start fixing the world. And he did. Back in the same alley where fate had once cornered him, construction crews broke ground. The site became known as the Bridge Lab, a place where no genius was turned away because they were barefoot or hungry or forgotten. As months turned into a year, Project Rise went global. Hundreds of children began walking again. Families who had lost hope found purpose. And Olivia, she became the face of resilience, speaking at schools and hospitals with her best friend and savior always by her side. Eli was offered honorary degrees from multiple universities. He accepted them, but made it clear he didn't want a title. He wanted impact. His face appeared on magazine covers, TED Talks, Nobel speculation. But he stayed grounded. Every Friday, without fail, He still returned to that same spot under the bridge, now transformed with bright murals and glass panels. He'd sit quietly and sketch, and when kids came by, curious or lost, he'd hand them a toolkit, a blueprint, and a warm meal. Because Eli never forgot. He remembered the days when he felt invisible. He remembered what it felt like to be seen for the first time. And he remembered the moment a little girl believed in a boy with rusted metal and a dream. The day the beggar boy made the millionaire freeze was not just a chance encounter. It was the start of a revolution. Eli had become more than a symbol. He was a beacon of hope, proof that sometimes the most overlooked people hold the keys to the greatest miracles. One afternoon, as Eli was finishing a workshop at the Bridge Lab, a familiar voice called out his name. It was Maxwell. "Eli, I have something for you," he said, holding a small box. Curious, Eli opened it. Inside was a simple gold ring engraved with the words, "Vision, courage, change." Maxwell looked him in the eye. "This is for you, not for the boy you were, but for the man you've become." Tears welled up, but Eli swallowed hard. "I couldn't have done any of this without Olivia, without everyone who believed when no one else did." Maxwell smiled. "Then let's make sure the world never forgets." And so, the Elijah Carter Foundation was born, a nonprofit dedicated to providing tech education and medical assistance to disadvantaged children worldwide. But Eli's journey was not without challenges. Jealous competitors tried to discredit him, politicians questioned his lack of formal education, and some old friends doubted the boy who once begged on the streets. Yet Eli's response was always the same: action. He worked harder. He learned more. He stayed humble. One evening during a gala celebrating the foundation's first anniversary, Eli was asked to speak. He looked out at the crowd of millionaires, doctors, and dignitaries. "Many of you see me as a miracle," he said, "but I see something else. I see the power of belief, the power of kindness, the power of a single moment." He paused, remembering that day on the street corner. "When I told that millionaire, 'I can make your daughter walk again,' I wasn't just promising her steps. I was promising a future where no child's potential is limited by their circumstance." The room was silent. "And that future isn't just mine, it's ours." Olivia stood beside him, smiling. Together, they symbolized the extraordinary impact of faith, grit, and second chances. Outside the gala, news crews lined the red carpet. One reporter asked Eli what advice he had for young people struggling today. He answered simply, "Your beginnings don't define your end. Keep dreaming, keep fighting, and never ever let anyone make you feel invisible." As cameras flashed and applause erupted, Eli's heart was full, because he had learned the most important lesson of all. No matter how broken the past, the future always holds the promise of walking tall. Thank you for watching this incredible journey of hope and transformation. What do you think is the most powerful lesson from Eli's story? Have you ever witnessed a moment that changed someone's life forever? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories. If you believe in the power of real stories that inspire and uplift, don't forget to subscribe to the Arc of Stories. We bring you heartfelt, powerful tales that remind us all that no matter where we start, we can walk toward a brighter future. Hit that subscribe button and join our community today, because every story matters.